infamous. We be the infamous, you heard of us. Official Queensbridge murderers. The mob comes.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to yet another video, and yet again, we are recording past 4 a.m. Or why am I doing this to myself? I have no idea. No, I do have an idea because we have to talk about college football yet again here with my top 25. And I have to be honest with y'all, there will not be much change here because none of the top teams, I think, had a significant enough win or looked poorly enough in their win for me to change my because remember what this is based off. This is based off of who I think would win on a neutral field. So I still think that Georgia, after their win versus Auburn, would beat any team in the country. Because going on the road, this is what you guys have to understand. Yeah, that Auburn team sucked against Texas A&M last week, but at home, this is probably the best we're going to see Auburn play all year. I look at Missouri last season and what they gave against Georgia. Very similar vibes I had this game. And in both those games, Georgia had to rally, come back, and drive down the field to win the game. That's what they did here. Brock Bowers had his best game of the season. He is getting rolling now back to back weeks. He's been dominant. And Carson Beck, I mean, every week I just get more and more impressed. I gain more and more confidence in his ability to perform when they need him because now we have two games in SEC competition where I see Georgia handling adversity, bouncing back from that, and winning the game. So, some people may look at this as a negative. I saw some Georgia fans talking about we shouldn't be number one anymore. I don't understand that. I actually liked what I saw out of Georgia this week. If you just beat up on everybody, and I don't really think you're learning anything about yourselves. You're not learning how to handle adversity. So I've seen that from Georgia this year. So I have them at number one still. Florida State and Ohio State, I'll be pretty quick. Both these teams had a bye, so I'm not gonna drop them in the rankings because of that. Florida State, I'll restate my Jordan Travis opinion. I don't think he's a Heisman contender because he has not had, that Heisman moment. He's had good games. He hasn't lost that many games, certainly. He's been a part of two massive wins, but I need to see more out of Jordan Travis for me to put him in that talk. Ohio State, Kyle McCord has come into his own. I'd like to see them establish the run more. Marvin and Mecca have been good, not great, certainly not the best duo in the country as of right now. And defensively, I've been impressed by Ohio State so far. Washington at number 4. Some of you may look at that game against Arizona very similar to their game against Cal in the effect that the final score does not really tell the whole story. I would argue that Washington was in control of this game the entire way. I don't think they were ever really threatened by Arizona just because they scored late. The final score looks closer than it really was. Michael Penix did not throw a touchdown, although he did have 363 yards and no turnovers. I really like what Washington has done. Sorry, 3 weeks in a row they've had well over 100 rushing yards, and they've really focused on that. And I like that because when push comes to shove, and you have to play the USC's, the Oregon's, the Washington States, you're going to need a strong run game. You can't just rely on the pass. And it seems like they're focusing on that, which I like to see. They had 6 receivers, over 30 yards. And defensively, Jaden DeLora and that Arizona offense is not easy to stop. So holding them to 24 points, I don't think it's, a negative for Washington. So my opinion on Washington remains the same. I still think they're a top 4 team in the country. Moving on to Penn State, who in a conference matchup dominated Northwestern. Drew Aller, solid, not his best performance, but they didn't need his best performance because they were able to run the ball pretty effectively. 134 yards with 3 touchdowns defensively. They have been on an absolute tear now defensively. All 3 conference opponents, Iowa, Illinois, and Northwestern, they have dominated. 7 sacks. 7 sacks for Penn State against Northwestern. 45 rushing yards allowed. This was a dominant performance. Penn State, you know, Penn State, Washington is very back and forth for me, but I just give Washington the edge because I've seen so much more from Michael Penix than I have Drew Aller. I want to see I want to see Penn State because they've been a team. They've dominated everybody. Really, they really have not been in a close game yet. I want to see what Drew Aller does when they need him. When the defense is struggling for whatever reason, or the other team, they have a couple turnovers early. So I want to see what Penn State does when the pressure is put on them. Michigan at 6, still have them at 6. I had them at 2 for like the first month of the season, and this last week it's just, I mean, look, they had their best game of the season. Okay, so let's give them credit where credit is due. No penalties, no turnovers. Defensively, they were amazing. Ran the ball down Nebraska's throat. McCarthy looked fine. It's just similar to Penn State. They've dominated everybody. Every single game Michigan's played this season, they've scored at least 30 points, and they've given up 7 or less points. I need to see Michigan versus Penn State. That's really what I need to see. The winner of that game is probably going to be a top 3 team in the country for me. Almost certainly going to be a top 3 team, probably the top 2 team. I just need to see that game. It can't come close enough. We have to wait a while until we get that game. Number 7, I have Oregon still coming off their win versus Colorado, 42-6. They beat Stanford, 42-6. And this is Oregon football. Bo Nix, incredibly efficient, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. They pounded the rock, over 200 rushing yards. Troy Franklin making a strong case for the best wide receiver in the country with over 500 yards and 7 touchdowns in just 5 games. And then defensively, 5 sacks, coming off 7 sacks last week. They're playing out of their mind right now. In conference play, back-to-back conference games, the win total from those games is 84-12. So Oregon's playing at an incredibly high level. So a lot of teams looked very dominant today, but I just, if I had to give, it would be this screen. This screen was way more impressive than the previous screen, but we haven't, look at the competition: Northwestern, Nebraska, and Stanford. Okay, I'm sorry, I just can't give it up for those teams. Number 8, we got Texas. Look, man, I was so looking forward to this game. Should have been so much more than what it was. Jalen Daniels out at the last minute. Kansas had to put in their backup. He didn't look amazing. He was running for his life. Receivers dropping big passes. Is this a ranked win for Texas? Are we counting this as a ranked win? I don't fucking know. Quentin Ewers looked good. His best game since Bama, maybe even including Bama, his best game overall. He was very solid. They ran the. I told y'all Jonathan Brooks would have a massive game. I don't know where I said that at, but yeah, he was incredible. Over 300 rushing yards as a team. A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy were great together. 17 catches, 234 yards, and a touchdown. They did not allow a single 3rd or 4th down conversion. You're probably going to win if you don't allow a team to convert a single 3rd or 4th down. So a strange game. You give them credit still for beating a conference opponent. But, man, no Jalen Daniels. We missed a great opportunity to see that Texas defense playing against maybe the best quarterback they'll play all season. USC at 9. How do you judge this game? Such a strange game. They beat Colorado 48-41, a tale of 2 halves if I've ever seen it. First half, they crushed Colorado and stepped on them. Second half, they were slow. They stalled out on a couple drives. Caleb Williams threw his first interception of the season, but he also threw for 6 touchdowns. Might as well acknowledge that. Defensively, man, not good. Not good at all. Think of the comparison. What did Oregon do to Colorado? They gave up 6 points. What did USC do? They gave up 41. And let's be real here. If you watch this game, it is not unfair at all to say Colorado beat themselves. Colorado, with a missed field goal, a blocked punt, and an interception, all in the first half, I think. So I think it's very fair to say that if Colorado, not even if all 3 of those things, let's say if 2 of those things go their way, I think Colorado wins this game. And the Travis Hunter argument certainly is much more of a factor this game because Colorado was down 3 of their starting secondary. It's just, this is a bad look for USC, especially on their defense, okay? Offensively, you can say, yeah, they showed up. They put up 48 points. They did what they're supposed to do. But defensively, to give up 41 to Colorado when just last week their competition, USC speaking, Oregon gave up just 6 points. It's just not a good look. I don't think USC's defense has improved from last season. They're giving up 24.2 points per game, and they've played a very weak schedule, guys. A very weak schedule. To be giving up 24.2, they still got to play Oregon and Washington, and possibly a Cam Rising Utah, although I doubt that. Let's just do it like this. They got to play Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame. Do you think if Colorado can put up 41 with a bad O-line, what do you think those teams are going to do to them? I would argue that all three of those teams we'd expect to have at least 35 points. So USC, they kind of just proved to me and to a lot of the country that their defense is not fixed. It's not fixed. If you put up 48 points and you have to bite your nails in the second half because that lead isn't safe, it's very concerning for USC. I got Alabama at 10 because they beat Mississippi State handedly. Mississippi State continues to be one of the most disappointing teams of the entire season. Will Rogers is a complete and utter fraud. I never want to hear another thing about him. Jalen Milroe finally had a game without an interception. He played very well this game. 193 team rushing yards. Very good on them for embracing that identity. This is the thing that still concerns me. Jalen Milroe only threw 12 passes, and he was sacked 4 times again. I think 4 weeks in a row, Alabama has allowed at least 4 sacks. That offensive line's awful. At least in pass protection. Maybe they're a good one. I don't know. Penalties and pass protection, they were completely awful. And it was shoved down my throat that this Alabama offensive line was supposed to be amazing, legendary. So bullshit on that. But defensively, they are amazing. They are as good as they've ever been. 4 sacks, 3 takeaways. Alabama's defense is probably the best in the SEC, maybe the best in the country. It is shut down, it is locked down, which makes what Texas did to them all the more impressive. Next screen, we got Notre Dame. I'll be honest, Notre Dame should have lost this game. Absolutely should have lost this game. Multiple missed field goals by Duke. It took a 4th and 16 scramble by Sam Hartman for Notre Dame to win this game. Sam Hartman, yeah, he made the winning play at the end there, but back-to-back weeks with no touchdowns. Think about what I just said to you. Sam Hartman, the man who had like 16 touchdowns in the first month of the season, back-to-back weeks against ranked teams, good defenses, no touchdowns. With that being said, they were able to run the ball effectively like they were able to do against Ohio State. Mitchell Evans is a monster. He makes ridiculous catches. Yeah, he's a beast. New tight end there. Defensively, they were good. They were good. Duke was not able to get much off versus them. Like I said, they missed 2 field goals, but still, defensively, back-to-back weeks, they go what 17, then 14. But yeah, just another bad performance from Notre Dame. I had to bump them up 2 spots because that was a good Duke team that they beat, but that Duke certainly lost that game more than Notre Dame won that game. But I still bumped them up 2 spots to number 11. Oklahoma, I got at number 12. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I was wrong about Oklahoma. I'd always thought I had Dylan Gabriel on my top 10 quarterbacks, but I did not think there was enough talent around him to allow him to shine like I knew he could. With that being said, they dominated Iowa State. They've dominated a lot of teams so far this season. Not SMU and Cincinnati, but certainly Iowa State was on the chopping block here. One of their best rushing performances of the season, 157 yards, 4 receivers, over 50 yards, and defensively, the defense has been the strength of this team. As good as their offense has been, Dylan Gabriel has been outstanding, but defensively, a sack, 2 takeaways today. They've been ball hawks all season. This might have been the most points they've given up at 20, so keep an eye on Oklahoma, man. It's Red River next week, I think. Man, whoever wins that game, certainly the favorites in the Big 12, top 10 team. It's going to be massive. It's going to be absolutely massive this year. 13, I got Ole Miss. If you didn't know, Ole Miss versus LSU was the game of the year. Go watch the highlights on YouTube right now. Was it 1,300 total yards and 14 touchdowns scored? If you like defense, probably don't want to watch this game. But Ole Miss played out their fucking mind at home versus LSU. Jackson Dart, the game of his life, 439 total yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Quinshon Judkins, finally, I've been waiting for Quinshon Judkins of last season to show up this year, and he did. 34 touches, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 receivers already over 340 yards this season. It's Trey Harris, Jordan Watkins, and Dayton Wade, I think is his name. Yeah, they have a very good receiving, and that's what's that. Zachariah Franklin. Sorry, I'm talking too fast. Zachariah Franklin transferred in from UTSA. I thought he was going to be the number 1 receiver. He's like the number 4. That's how stacked their wide receiver room is at Ole Miss. And then defensively, they did just enough. They got a massive hit on Jaden Daniels early in the game, forced a fumble. They got 3 sacks. They made more plays, way more plays than LSU made. You look, LSU's defense is god awful. Their defensive line's good, I think I could say, but I mean they didn't use it effectively. They got Harold Perkins playing out in coverage rather than just, blitzing the passer. So, man, horrible defense played this game. But if you like offense, you like touchdowns, this is the game for you. Washington State, North Carolina, and Miami, all with bye weeks, but I bumped them all up by 1 spot because LSU had to fall way the fuck down. So I'll talk about all 3 of these teams at once. I think I'll compare them all to each other if you want to say. I think quarterback wise, I think Washington State certainly. I mean, look, who has gotten the most attention this season? I think out of these 3, it's Drake May. I think Tyler Van Dyke has been kind of the story of like a redemption season for him. So I think Cameron Ward. Just look at the stats. I put the stats up here for you. Drake May's the guy that's projected to go top 3. Compare his stats to Cameron Ward. Keep in mind he's thrown 4 picks. Cameron Ward's thrown none. Cameron Ward twice as many touchdowns as Drake May with 4 less turnovers. Keep that in mind. So I think Washington State, without a doubt, is getting the best quarterback play right now. I think they probably have the best receiver core as well. Defensively and in the run game, I think I give the edge to Miami there. Although North Carolina has shown multiple games where their defense can step up. I think North Carolina, I mean, I would just give them a slight edge versus Miami and on neutral field. So slight. Because I trust Drake May more than I trust Tyler Van Dyke. But Miami's run game, I acknowledge. All 3 of these are very good teams, okay? All top 16 for me. But I can't wait until North Carolina and Miami play. I hope they're both undefeated at that point because the winner of that game will certainly be top 10 on my list. So, man, that's going to be exciting when we see that. Number 17, this is where LSU ended up for me. Look, this was much worse than the Florida State loss because this loss was kind of the nail in the coffin of their defense having any hope for this season. You do not give up, what was it, 600 some yards? I think it was 700 yards to Ole Miss. I mean, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. I don't even know what to say about their defense. Offensively, Jaden Daniels was amazing. He was outstanding. The best game of his career. Over 500 yards with 5 touchdowns. What the hell was he supposed to do? What is he supposed to do? He has Heisman level stats with no defense. 223 rushing yards. Logan Diggs continues to make a massive difference in the LSU run game. Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas. From what I've seen, this is the best wide receiver duo in the country. I think Malik Nabers has 600 yards. Brian Thomas has 500. They combined for 16 catches, 226 yards, 3 touchdowns. Brian Thomas had all 3 of those touchdowns, by the way. They're incredible. But how can I put them any higher than them? I mean, just look at this. All 3 of these past games would absolutely destroy LSU. They would murder LSU. All 3 of these past games would murder. Ole Miss already did murder LSU. So it's just, man, I love their offense. I love their offense. But defensively, man, they just showed me that their offense can't overcome their defense. So where do I put them? Fuck it. They end up at 17 for me. Missouri continues to climb because they just had another outstanding offensive performance. Brady Cook is getting better. Missouri as a team, they're getting better game by game here. From Kansas State put them on the map, Memphis got them ranked, and now Vanderbilt was their time to really just go out and dominate because Brady Cook over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. 137 rushing yards as a team. Cody Schrader had a solid game. Luther Burden leads the SEC in receiving yards, over 640 with 5 touchdowns. Look, when people were calling him the best receiver in the SEC before the season, I kind of laughed it off. I am rescinding all of the doubt, all of the hate. Luther Burden is that guy. And then defensively, they were more than solid enough to beat Vanderbilt. So Missouri up to 18 for me. Oregon State, very tough to judge this game. Yeah, Utah was ranked the number 10 team in the country, but Utah does not have Division I quarterback play right now. Nate Johnson and Bryson Barnes, I think, could very well be working at Kroger in 2 years. And look, that's a pretty big shot, but I work at Kroger, so take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, Utah is the worst offensive team in the Pac-12, and that's saying a lot. DJ Lele, he wasn't good enough versus Washington State. He still wasn't good enough tonight. I think he got benched for a little bit. I'm not sure what happened there. The backup came in for a little. Um, Look, DJ, he has no confidence. He misses too many throws. It's tough to watch. Okay, Oregon State's offense is not pretty, but their defense shined through here. They were able to run the ball. Damian Martinez is still that guy. Defensively, 3 sacks, had a takeaway. Only 57 rushing yards allowed, but they did have 11 penalties. So it's just DJ does not have a command of that offense. It's like he's just out there hoping things work. So yeah, Oregon State, I still don't trust them to beat anybody above them, and probably not even a lot of the teams below them. But their defense is so good, their run game is good. Man, if they just had a quarterback, they really are in the same position that they were last year. It's kind of sad. Number 20, I got Tennessee. They got their revenge against South Carolina with a 21-point win. Joe Milton, two interceptions, only 243 yards still. Even when they win significantly, they still can't get a great performance out of Joe Milton. They also lost Brew McCoy for the season, I think, and wonder if he's going to get a red shirt. They probably NCAA is pretty lenient with that type of stuff. I'm sure he'll get one. I think he's like a pretty like it might be like his 6th or 7th season if he does get one. Uh, Again, strength of this Tennessee team, running the football. They got all their running backs back from last season. They're putting that to good use. 238 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. South Carolina was abysmal on 3rd and 4th down. 4 out of 20. Terrible. Great if you're Tennessee. Defensively, 6 sacks, 1 takeaway. I was impressed. I was impressed by the Tennessee defense for a couple weeks in a row now. So, you know, Tennessee really just a sharp shift from last season, from all high-powered offense, high-powered passing game, struggling defensively to running the ball and good defense. We'll see how far that can take them. But after that loss to Florida, back-to-back weeks, I like what I've seen out of Tennessee. We'll see if they can keep it going. Number 21, I got Kentucky because they put the beats on Florida. Look, I didn't have Florida ranked for good reason, it seems. Devin Leary on the season, he's not been what a lot of people, including me, thought he could be, but they're 5-0 regardless. So how bad has he really been, right? A lot of drop passes I saw in that game. He threw a dot to Barry Brown, I think he was, and he just dropped it in the end zone. So not all on him, I don't think. Ray Davis owns the deed to the entire state of Florida. He owns it. 740 yards on the season, 11 touchdowns. I think Ray Davis had 280 yards in the first half. Don't quote me on that, but it was something fucking ridiculous like that. Uh, Kentucky's top 3 receivers are all over 196 yards. Again, their passing game is not what it should be right now, but they're still a good, well-rounded offense, mainly because of Ray Davis. And defensively on the year, they have 9 takeaways, 14 sacks. Kentucky's a good team. Okay, they're a very good team. Their problem is that they play Georgia this week. So hopefully they can give Georgia their best shot in hell. I do think Kentucky can beat Georgia because defensively, I think they have the talent. And we just saw that Auburn proved that you can run the ball against Georgia. So if Kentucky just does not abandon the run, protects the football, doesn't turn it over, I think we're going to see them give Georgia some problems. Or Georgia's going to blow them out, one or the other. Number 22, I got Kansas State. They had a bye week, so just looking at their team as a whole, I wasn't going to drop them out the rankings because their last win over UCF was very impressive. Not much to say. They had a bye week. I kept them in my top 25. 23, I got Clemson. Clemson returns to the rankings because I mentioned it in the FSU game. I thought they played extremely hard. I thought they showed a lot against Florida State. Okay, it left a good impression on me. And beating 4-0 Syracuse handedly, that also leaves a good impression on me. So I put Clemson back in the rankings. Offensively, I think they're figuring it out. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not great to watch, but Will Shipley and Phil Mafah is a very good running back duo. Cade Klubnik, I think, is doing about as good as you can with what he has to work with. And defensively, we knew they were already good defensively. So 11 sacks on the season, 10 takeaways. You know, I'd like to see them get after the quarterback more, but they're getting a lot of turnovers. So I like Clemson going. It's so strange because their season's over. Effectively, they have a 0% chance of making the college football playoff. And I mean, they don't even control their own destiny as far as making it to the ACC championship game. But all they can do is continue to play hard, try and beat who's in front of them, and let the cards fall where they may. I think Clemson is playing at a very high level right now, including the Florida State game 4 weeks in a row now. So I don't think there's many teams, or I don't think there's any teams below them that could beat Clemson. So I kept them at 20. Well, so I have them at 23. Colorado actually moves up in the rankings because, well, quite frankly, they played harder against USC than anybody else this season. They outplayed USC handedly. I mentioned it in the USC little subject here. They lost this game. They could have beat USC without, keep this in mind, they could have beat USC without their best player, Travis Hunter, and without 3 starting members of their secondary. They could have beat USC. Shedeur Sanders, they played so afraid in the first half. I think Shedeur Sanders had like 20 yards after the first quarter because it was all just check down here, check down there, get the ball out of his hands fast. In the second half, when they let him go out and play, he was making big throws all over the field, and they were also able to run the ball on USC, unlike they were able to run the ball against anybody else. Think about this: they were trailing against USC. It was incredibly favorable to throw the ball the whole second half, but they chose to run the ball because they knew they could. If Colorado would have had a lead here, they probably would have ran for like 250 yards on USC. So not only did they establish the run game for the first time all season, Omarion Miller, out of nowhere, because Travis Hunter's out, new guys are going to get opportunities. Omarion Miller just burst onto the scene with 196 yards and a touchdown. I mean, so many positives for Colorado to take away this game. But special teams was embarrassing. Missed field goal, blocked punt, horrible all season, really, on special teams for Colorado. And then defensively, I mean, you gave up 48 points. You let Caleb Williams. But look, the second half, they forced the first turnover. I mean, Caleb Williams did not throw a pick to Stanford, to San Jose State, to Nevada, to Arizona State, whatever. He threw a pick to Colorado. That's all I can say about that. I mean, he threw a pick versus Colorado. So that was an impressive loss, I should say. I learned a lot of positive things about Colorado from that game. And then number 25, look, that was not Kansas. I'm sorry. If you don't beat Jalen Daniels, you don't beat Kansas. If Kansas does not have Jalen Daniels, they're not Kansas. Jalen Daniels is one of my favorite players in the country. He didn't play last week, so it doesn't count as far as I'm concerned. Hopefully he's back next week. We'll see how they do, but I'm sorry. If Jalen Daniels lost that game, that's fine. I can drop out the rankings. But if they have Jalen Daniels, they are for sure, without a doubt, one of the 25 best teams in the country. Fight me. So that's what I think about that. Man, it's 4:30. I'm tired as shit, but we got this video done. Thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
It's out the motherfucking pack. Right out the niggas don't know how to act.